This is Radio 97. Talking Law is the program you're listening to with Despina Priala from Priala Legal. And if you have a legal question, anything at all, pop it into an email and send it to us. Despina, happy to answer your question here on the radio on a Thursday morning. Just go to radio97.com.au and you can contact us through that. That's probably one of the best ways.
Thank you, Wayno. So, folks, right before the break, we mentioned this particular scenario, which is very much the reality for these thousands. I think it's about 1,200 people involved. So they purchased, I'm assuming it would have cost thousands, this unforgettable, that's what it's marketed as a cruise through European waterways. And this was back in 2013, roughly. But the weather got bad and all these people apparently ended up forced onto a bus rather than this beautiful cruise, a bus, and going back and forth through hotels. And this is now this massive court case. Despina, can you tell us the details? What happened?
Yeah, not quite as glamorous, Despina.
Well, I think a great outcome, although 10 years is a very long time for these people to be in a class action. And it has been reported there by the firm that's been managing this class action that he really took his hat off to all of the people involved, because being in any litigation is very stressful of itself, and staying with the actual class action for 10 years and being, sticking to their position and maintaining that is very, very hard ordeal. And he was so grateful to them, of course, and for themselves in sticking with it for so long. And because the outcome was very good for them. I mean, Scenic Tours has been ordered to pay 26 million, it is, in compensation, which also covers legal costs. So Scenic Cruises, as I think they're called, or Scenic Tours actually, do these European river cruises. And in this particular case, it was extremely interesting, not only because of the 10 years of protracted litigation, which eventually had this great outcome for the members involved, for the consumers, but also that it went through quite a few appeals. So it actually ended up in the High Court in 2020 eventually. So it started off in 2013, 2014, and it got to the High Court in 2020, and the High Court ultimately determined in favour of the consumers, the people who actually paid for their trip many years ago. And it was interesting that Scenic Tours actually fought this every step of the way, and appealed, and eventually they lost when it went to the High Court, which is the ultimate court in our country. That's the end of the road. So whatever they decide, that's it. So I think that the journey on this, as I can say, has been quite unique. And we want to talk about a little bit what we're mentioning here about compensation. Compensation for what? So there were compensation, obviously, for damages. Put it very simplistically, they paid for something they never received. Okay, so I'm going to mention some things from the article here. So what Scenic Tours was actually marketing, all right, apparently, is that they were saying to people, passengers, consumers, look, we're offering a once-in-a-lifetime cruise along the grand waterways of Europe. Okay, and it says where passengers will have a truly unforgettable journey and travel in luxury in Europe. Now, it's very enticing, isn't it? And it comes down to representations. Yep. And if you're going to represent anything in this world, it better be accurate, because we've got very hefty consumer protection laws about misleading and deceptive conduct, okay, and misrepresentations. And they will be tested in the courts like they have in many times over the years that we've seen. So you don't want to say something that's not going to actually be true. Now, initially, Scenic Tours, my understanding is that it wasn't their intention not to, try and deliver on their promise. But what actually happened, as you alluded to before, was that there was some very heavy rainfall and extreme flooding in Germany in 2013. Now, because of that, I suppose, unforeseen event, yes, and out of the control of Scenic Tours, the trip, right, that they promised couldn't actually be delivered. All right, so the river cruises on the Rhine and the Danube that were to occur, traveling luxury all the time, unforgettable experiences, none of that happened.
You now, instead,
well, yes,
yeah, get on a bus.
So.
Yeah.
Exactly. But instead of Scenic Tours refunding money, right? And saying simply, look, we just can't deliver what we promised because of the unforeseen event. That actually didn't happen. They took the money, they ran with it, they made people, apparently they were forced. So the passengers were forced not to travel in luxury. Okay, it might have been out of their control, but they didn't cancel the tours or cruises or offer refunds at all. They just made people go and stay in, second class, second rating hotels and go on long bus trips. And that wasn't the trip that they were promised, was it?
And this sounds like a first world issue, and people go, oh, shut up, who cares? They went on a bus through Europe to get over it. But they would have paid ultimately thousands, you assume, for the waterways cruise, and that's not what they got. So you would be very disappointed.
Well, yes, it might be a first world country problem. And there, of course, if we have other problems in our country in terms of the economy, etc. But a lot of these people were elderly, and a lot of them had used their life savings. I know that I've spoken with people just in society, out and about. They used a lot of their savings. Some people took money out of their super. I mean, to go on these trips. Now, yes, it wasn't necessary. It was something that they wanted. But if you're going to put yourself out there to promise something to consumers and you don't deliver, you don't offer refunds, right? And you say, look, we're just going to cancel the cruise, give your money back. You're going to be called on it, as this company was. And the really interesting part is that there were damages awarded for disappointment and distress.
There you go.
Well, that's what we want. I want my disappointment money.
Exactly. I want my disappointment money. And they got it.
Yeah.
And
How
they
much?
got it. Well, I mean, all up, as I said, it was $26 million that Scenic Tours now have to pay in compensation, including legal costs. And this was interesting because if you're in this situation, now this particular class action was run by a firm in Byron Bay, which we can give the details, on the website later on. But they ran this class action for 10 years, but the class action was funded by Omnibridge, which is an ASX publicly listed company that actually go about funding litigation and class actions. And we mentioned this on the show last year about this is becoming more prevalent with class actions, where you've got companies funding litigation, because how did the consumers afford 10 years of litigation and legal fees? Well, they didn't have to, because a company were able to fund the actual lawsuit. So if you're in the situation, you might want to think about jumping on and seeing if you might be part of any current class action suits against Scenic Tours or other companies. We can give those details off air if anybody wants it.
So a company that does decide to fund, what do they get out of it? Do they get a part of the winnings if it all...
I'm not privy to the arrangement, but obviously, yes, they would benefit. Yes.
Interesting. Well, there you go. So be careful before you book.
and yes, exactly. But also, even if you go down this path and this happens to you, the message is there are consumer protection laws in this country that are real, that are alive and well, and they will be used and enforced. And they are there to protect you.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't get what you promised, love that. Thank you so much, Despina. If anyone wants to get in touch with you directly, where can they go?
So they can phone the office 55 291 294. Email info@prialalegal.com.au. And then again, I'll have this up on my YouTube channel by the end of the week.
Perfect. Just search Priala Legal, Priala. Thank you, Despina and Wayne.
And we'll see you next week.
Are you confused about legal jargon? Do you need legal advice but don't know where to turn? Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97. Despina, a leading lawyer with over 20 years of experience, will demystify the law and provide practical advice to help you navigate legal issues. Whether it's a family matter, a property dispute, or a business concern, Talking Law has got you covered. Don't miss out on this valuable resource. Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97.